everyone, welcome to Dr Spotfire. Learning is not driven by answers, but by questions. And that is why every session we try to pick up your questions from community, questions that you email us or send us through Twitter and answer them and walk through them here. This is the crew. I'm Divya Jyoti or DJ. I lead the tech. Then we've got Ninad, who leads the strategy. Robert does all of our really nice post-production summaries and the links that you see on the wiki. And Anna is our campaign coordinator, and she manages the logistics. Our featured expert for today is Minarva Datta, who's a solutions consultant. She will be talking about creating a template for table of contents with Spotfire. Over to you, Minerva.
Sure. Hello, everyone. I'm very excited about today's session. We are going to talk about, yes, a table of contents in Spotfire. Let me go ahead and share my screen. There are a few things that I learned with this DXP, and as we start out, let me tell you a little bit about this DXP so we are all on the same page. This is a DXP we took from our TIPCO Now this year. It was one of the contestants' work, so good job, Team Byte Mechanics. It's a very simple DXP. It uses out-of-the-box tools. And the reason why I selected it was I thought that it gave you a fresh perspective of how we can make a table of contents very easily using simple scripts. Now, I know this looks very busy, but let's just have a look at what we're seeing on the screen here. We have a text area, and it is actually documenting everything inside the DXP tab by tab. So you have factors contributing to wine quality, that is tab 1. We have somehow listed all of the visualizations inside this tab. Again, tab 2, tab 3. Up until the last time I refreshed this script. So after page, it just shows another tab that was titled text area. Rather, it just shows a text area inside the page, right? So how I did this, right? How did I automatically, or rather through a script, get all of this stuff? It was a very simple IronPython script, a one-liner actually. So let's just have a look at it. And let's have a look at how I iteratively made that process a little more streamlined. And this will probably give you ideas on how to do it better in your DXPs as well. So first off, let's look at this button. As you know, all scripts in IronPython are event-driven. What that means is IronPython does something when you click a button, click a link, check something, click on a KPI, so on and so forth. So in order to get all of the metadata from my DXP, all of the titles, all of the header text, I did something simple. I said, let's go to show titles. I created a script. It was a very simple script that basically looped through all the pages in my DXP and appended the title as well as each of the visuals iteratively, and output all of this stuff in a document property called a TOC. So as you guys know, document properties are basically variables. These variables can hold, they're very versatile. You have document properties for a page, you have document properties for a data table. We'll see that a little later, and we'll see what TOC means as well. Now, in order to do this entire thing, I'm not an IronPython expert, but I took bits and bytes from the internet. We have a lot of content out there, especially on our community now. And the one thing that people often stumble with when they just copy a script, say, is that they get a lot of error messages, and the simplest error message usually says variable not defined, as variable as in say, it'll say output not defined. So rule of thumb is, this is a GUI-based scripting dialog. You have to declare your variables inside the script parameters area. It's a very simple thing. The experts in the panel, in the audience would already know this. So just a heads up. And I did exactly that. If you see, there are a bunch of types here, and I have chosen visualization as a type. So basically, this was how I got all of my headers and all of the content inside my DXP to show up in a document property, right? And if you see here, let's see, I want to go back. And yes, so this is my document property. And if I just hover here, you see my script wrote back all of the stuff inside the document property, right? Now, how do I display it? The simplest 101 way of doing this inside Spotfire would be to create a label. And creating a label out of the box is the simplest thing. So you go inside the text area and you go inside your insert, let's see. Yes, so you go inside the insert property control and you say insert label, right? It asks you what should this label contain, right? And I included my table of contents document property. And when I did that, I was able to get this exact output right here, right? So now this is static. Oftentimes, like in Word, if you create a table of contents, you probably want something more dynamic, something that changes on a click, something that's more visual, right? So that's where I went ahead and edited this step one of just iterating through the tabs in a DXP, of just iterating through and, you know, writing it in a text area. So my second event-driven mechanism of getting a table of content was to write all of this down inside of Spotfire, right? So here comes a much more elaborate script, and it is not intimidating because it's basically doing the same thing, but it's just writing to a data table inside Spotfire. Again, see, I have written down all of these variables in the script parameters. I have not written this script myself. I will link it to the community article in my community post so that you guys are able to tweak it and play with it as well. I'm doing the same thing, but in order to write back to a Spotfire data table, I am formatting it in a way such that, it looks like a table. So I have a CSV kind of table format put up here. So I say, okay, iterate through all the pages, put in a comma separated, basically a comma, so that it becomes a CSV kind of format, carriage return new line, right? And I do the same thing, but the cool thing here happens when I try to write back to a data table. This piece of code was taken from the community, as I said, and I just had to make a few tweaks. Like I had to change the type because both of my data types are string. I just changed the type, right? So I will make sure that I tell you what to change so you don't have to fumble with the whole code setting. But this is the basis of making sure that I'm able to write my table of contents inside a Spotfire table so that I can do all of this cool stuff now. Let's see. So as you see, I have these many tabs in my DXP. Now, in order to show you live changes, let me just open up a bunch of more tabs to show you how this script works, right? So let's go back to the page and let's go back to my action control. As I said, IronPython is event driven. So I need to click something or make an event happen to have a change in the script. So now I'm going to click method 2, and I want you to notice the changes that happen on the screen. Let's click method 2, as you see. Oops. Let's see. Okay, page. Okay, so we have to note a few things here that happened. Let me see if any of the changes are reflected here. Not yet. Okay, let's just do a little bit of debugging and figure out what's happening. Ideally, what I wanted my method 2 button to show up all of the changes that were happening. So as you see, method 2 is linked to write to table, right? That's the script that we saw right here. And it is supposed to add all of the rows step by step, okay? And be able to put it inside a prompt. Okay. So now, after I added a bunch of pages, let's see if any of my data tables got refreshed. If that doesn't happen, I'll go ahead and explain what is happening to you. Okay, I'll have to debug it a little further, but let me skip one step ahead and get back to this as soon as I can. But skip one step ahead and show you, because I have a lot of content to cover here. When I wrote back, as you would have noticed, let's go to our data table properties. I wrote back to a table called index sheet 1. Okay, and index sheet 1 actually wrote down all of the um, uh, wrote down everything in columns inside of this data table. All right, so I actually went ahead and appended the numbers just to see how it shows up. But these are the things that show up when you are writing back to a Spotfire data table out of the box, right? And I tried to visualize this beautifully, saying, okay, if you do have a table of contents, what is the best way to visualize it as a Spotfire table? So I thought a summary table makes a lot of sense, wherein you're trying to say, okay, page 1 has these many data visualizations, page 2 has these many data visualizations, so on and so forth. As I said, I had appended these numbers so that they show up in order. The other way that I thought might be cool was to show it in the form of, and this is totally based on your choices, but to show it in the form of this kind of a visualization, where I say, okay, page 1 has these 2 visualizations, page 2 has these 2 visualizations, right? But what I still thought was missing was that I wanted to be able to say, click on a page, rather click on the index and go to a page, right? So again, we can be very creative here. And what I thought out of the box was that I could have KPI charts, because KPI charts have the ability to actually make something happen on the click of a button, right? Do an action. So for example, I have linked this KPI tile to actually go to a page, right? So it actually goes to that page in my table of contents when structured as a KPI, and it can show the stuff that is happening inside, right? Go back to the page, inside this particular page. Now the linking might not be correct because I was just trying to show that it can work, okay? Right, so this was the thing. I will double check why my script doesn't update and possibly put it up in the community, or we can have a look at it um, as soon as I finished showing all of my content as well. This was just a text. So this was the original script that I took from one of our community articles. It was written by someone in TIPCO, and I modified it based on my requirement right now. Now, our title of this presentation also says that we will allow you to show all of this stuff inside a Bootstrap template. And this is something very cool that I observed in with one of my customers. So let's go ahead. I'll have to start a simple server so that I can show you my hosted the hosted contents of this DXP, okay? And I will detail these steps. Right now, I'm just making sure that all of this shows up through hosted content on a server. And let's go ahead and go to this page. There we go. So this, what you're seeing here is a Bootstrap template. For those of you who are new to front-end programming or haven't heard of Bootstrap, it's like one of the industry standards for front-end programming. And why I find it cool to use this kind of a front-end inside Spotfire is many times companies have their own look and feel on their websites, right? And this is a very beautifully formatted template. And you can get that inside Spotfire. And the beauty of it is not that you can get it inside Spotfire, it's also that you can tweak it and use Spotfire controls that work inside text areas. Basically inside text areas. So you're looking at these kind of controls, right? You can make these controls work with your Bootstrap. For example, if I wanted a bullet graph, the default is wine quality. I'm okay with the X and Y. I just want to show you that, you know, it fits inside the template, inside the formatting of your CSS style sheet, and it shows up like this, right? So this is your Spotfire control inside the Bootstrap template. And it's very easy to set up. So I'm going to show you how to do it. The only nuance here is Spotfire is picky about the syntax. So once you have like a guideline that shows you this is the kind of syntax needed, it'll help you out in just, you know, copying and pasting your templates or your HTML snippets here. So the way, what I did here first off was I basically took my Bootstrap stuff. So Bootstrap templates are often available free if they are, you know, made available by a few developers in the who are good with Bootstrap. There are also very very beautiful paid templates in the market. Right now, I was using a free template called Start Bootstrap right here. I'll give you the link to download this as well. This is how the contents of a Bootstrap template look. So as you see, it's very segmented, very logically segmented. All the CSS stuff is kept in this folder. All the JavaScript stuff is kept in this folder. Now our task inside Spotfire is to link it at the right places. So what I did first off was put all the HTML here without any changes, okay? And then to include all of my JavaScript and all of my CSS that usually is on the top of your HTML file, I did this, right? Let's make this a little bigger. Now, as you see, this is a peculiar style of importing all of the JavaScript and HTML pieces, and you do it through the script console inside a Spotfire. But it is as simple as this. Once this is done, you're just putting head append, making sure that the double quotes and the single quotes are put in right, making sure that you're encasing this inside round brackets like this, and including a semicolon. It's very specific about the syntax. You get something looking like the text area behind you, right? This took me exactly 15 minutes to do today morning because I had another template that I couldn't show because there were a few proprietary things inside it. But this, as I said, I can share with you and you can tweak as well. Now, as you see, unlike Bootstrap templates, I've not included all the images. I have not linked all of these, but these are easy and very doable. You can tweak it and have fun with it. Now, why we were trying to include these two disparate topics of table of contents generated through a script and a Bootstrap template is because I thought it would be a nifty idea to have your table of content show up inside a very nice, stylistic template as such, and for you to be able to control a few things inside this template to guide your users about, you know, what your DXP contains. So if you piece these two together, if you run a script and make sure the output is like we discussed earlier, let's try and do that. When I say edit text area, if I try and put my output as that label, if you remember. So let's see, let's put in a label that says table of contents. And this will not be very stylized, which is okay because it's very plain vanilla right now. But it is encased in this beautiful template right now. And if I say okay, ideally, let's see if that reflects. If not, there could be a few conflicts with the underlying script. Maybe some piece of JavaScript is conflicting. I'll have to debug that piece, but it should show up. Let's try this once again. So I have my TOC right here. Let's try and move it a little bit on top. Okay, so we're right above the about piece. Let's try and move it below the start Bootstrap piece just to see if it shows up, right? And if it doesn't, my apologies. I'll fix it up in the community articles as well and show you a working piece of code. Okay, let's see if something comes up. Okay, I see some changes happen. Yeah, there we go. So now we have something styled that you don't have to worry about because your underlying CSS is doing that part. And you have that show up inside a Bootstrap template. using a script that actually got all of these factors. So if you have a DXP that's like maybe 20 tabs long, which is very common in a commercial scenario, you can get all of this information quite quickly. Right. Okay. So yeah, that's about it. Are there any specific questions for me? Let me go ahead and check. Not quite. Okay. DJ, I think I'm done with my content here.
All right. So Minerva, let me ask you a few variations that I have seen on this theme.
Okay.
You showed for table of contents from one DXP, both to see it in the DXP, to be able to click on it, and then to see it on the web. Is it possible to do this setup for multiple DXPs where you have a table of content showing your different DXPs?
Table of content showing different DXPs. Let me think. If they are in a common place, so right now you see I'm running something inside a Spotfire to capture all of the document, so all of the stuff that is inside the Spotfire document in the current instance. So if I have, say, a folder that contains a lot of DXPs, and I want to show all of the content inside that folder, scripting might achieve it. I'm just not sure if Iron Python scripting might achieve it.
Okay.
Yes.
And then we have another question that asks, how would the navigation bar work with the DXP?
So I'm guessing that it is with respect to with respect to the stuff inside the index or the table of contents. So see, there is a limitation here because if I have the table of contents just showing up like this, right? Ideally, it should be page 1 of your DXP. And this is not interactive, right? So page 1 would not do anything to guide you to that particular page, say, logical regression factors. So that's why I thought maybe including a KPI chart side by side. Let's just close this and close this. If I include a KPI chart side by side, such that if I click somewhere here, my KPI lights up and then I can navigate to that page. That was one of the workarounds that I thought might work. Navigation as such will not really change with you having, a text page as such.
And do you think that they can also create like a action button and using like an image or something and then use another script to navigate that page? I know that's a little bit more complex, but that would be another way as well, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yes, yes. See, that's how we do it now. If you have like a nice executive dashboard and you have, a number of pages that you can handle, that's the best way to do it right now because you probably include like an action control or an image, like you said, link it to the page, and that happens out of the box, right? If you say, okay, link, go to page, right? Just like you have a filter option inside of your text, you have an option to go to a particular page. This is just in case, why would you take advantage of scripting? It's when the process of doing this might be too tedious for you, or the DXP might be too expensive. Yeah.
Makes sense. And then the last question is, why do you need to run Python over the command line?
Oh, that's a very good question. And it should not seem so complex. So I am running so what you're seeing now is a very simplistic version of Spotfire Desktop. I don't have a local server running anywhere, right? So what I did here with this exact script called Python, right? What I did here was I started a simple Python server hosting its services on port 8888. And why I had to do that is because I have absolutely nothing running on my computer that is capable of hosting. So this would allow my DXP to pick up stuff like the CSS or the JavaScript from somewhere that's hosted on a server. And server hosting is intrinsic because you usually work in a corporate setup, you have all of your resources in a central place, you want to pick them up from there. You don't want to be responsible for all the CSS and the HTML stuff in only your computer. So it's like a best practice. That's why the computer is used to pulling up stuff from a server. And in order to enable that, because now that's like a standard, I had to run like a dummy server on my desktop machine. And it's not required. For example, actually, I have a very good example inside this TXP itself. So let's go to, I'm going to go this way because it's the easiest. If I go to edit HTML, it doesn't have anything. Let's see. Let's go to index. Let's go to edit HTML here. Right. So what I wanted to show you was, one second. So what I'm trying to show you, let's just talk through it while we do this, is I'm trying to bring back, yeah, my text area, because I wanted to show you one of the scripts here in method 2. Yes, and I want to go to the JavaScript stuff inside here. Let's see, show titles. Okay, not here, inside here, yeah. So I'm going to the JavaScript stuff inside here, inside the additional scripts piece, just to show you that there are a few things that are hosted in outside of my server. For example, Awesome Fonts, which is a Google library of like a collection of so many fonts. Right now we're borrowing a style sheet from Google APIs. There's another fonts called to a style sheet. All of these are hosted externally on another server, Google server, right? So I had to do nothing to enable that. This though says localhost 888, and this is something I had to enable by running a server loop. Okay. Oh, I see more questions pop up. Okay. Hey, Gina. That's one of my customers. Nice to see you attend the session. All right, DJ, I think we're good here.
All right. Thanks, Minerva. That was an absolutely smashing session, and I hope to make the recording available soon so that people can refer to it offline, as we did get a few requests for that as well.
Okay.
Now we're going to jump into the Q&A part. So today we've got a bunch of questions. We've picked them up from community as usual, but we also have a few of them coming in directly as emails that I'll talk about briefly. The first few items to get through is how do you contact Dr. Spotfire? So you put your answers in TIBCO community answers section with the hashtag Dr. Spotfire, or you can contact us directly through the email. But on the email, just make sure only do that if you do have certain sensitive data that you don't want to post on community, because otherwise we'll just redirect you to the community, as there's a large team of people serving and working there to get your answers answered quickly. Talking about some essential resources that are available for you. So there's the Spotfire Essential Analytics resources that goes through all the different items that we have on community, what the uses are, how can you get education and training, product documentation, and some links that we find useful. And then there is also the Customer Success Center, which is more of a newsletter type page that walks through whatever are the newest uploads on the community for the week. Some more resources that are available are the Dr. Spotfire playlist on YouTube and the community page, but also the summaries for every session, question by question. So Anna or Nina can send you these links on chat, and I'll be walking through to the first question of the day. So the first question that we had was sent by email from one of the customers. He had his data in there, so he really wanted to learn how to export the forecasting results. So what you basically see is that this is the data, this is the fitted line, and then you've got the forecast line along with, the confidence intervals, etc. So he really wanted to see, you can see one-click forecast in Spotfire, but how do you actually go in and get this data, extract this data? So I'm going to show you an example with a different data set. You can see this is the time series data. And I'm going to go into the properties, go to lines and curves, say I want to add a forecast, Holt Winters. I'm going to set everything to be default, except I'll change the time periods instead of 12 months to be 6 months. And then let's look at the confidence intervals. Let's make it another color where it's not so scary. And that is pretty much what your forecast is supposed to look like. So you can see that it captures the trends really well. The black line is your fitted line. And this black line shows you if you need to adjust the automatic parameters. I should probably adjust it to the peaks over here, but I think this is good enough. Now to switch it on or off, once I've configured that, I just need to right click. Now that I have this information, I don't have this data. So I have the data that I used to generate it, but not data that was used in forecasting. So in order to actually be able to use that data, and let me see if I can open up chat simultaneously. Okay, yes, I can. All right. So in order to actually be able to use that data, I went to the community and I have pasted in chat the links to the community articles. Sorry for switching back and forth. It wouldn't let me open chat on the same page, but you've got the API reference, and you've got the actual script that I'm using. If I go into my document properties and I go to my scripts, you can see the script here, which is get forecasted values. The way that this works is it looks at your chart visualization. So I've created the title. So it's looking for the page with the title export forecast results. It looks at whichever line chart is available there. It gets the attributes of the line chart. It gets the forecast model of the line chart. And then it goes in and just iteratively writes out the data values that are inside the fitted line, the forecast line, and the confidence line. So the black one is the fitted, the dotted black one is the forecast, and then these ones are the confidence ones. Now, once you've got the script, you can run the script as an action control button. So I'm just going to show you how to do that. Okay, so let's go in here, edit this. And I'm going to have insert action control. Let's call it a button. Let's say that the display name needs to be export forecast results. I will hook it up to a script and I'll say this script. Now, I hard-coded the title page title name. If you want, you could actually give it input parameters, and then that could be hooked up to selecting your page and grabbing the parameters. But just to make my life easier, I put it in the script for now. So once we've got this, you can see that right now I only have one data table. That's why it's not letting me, it's not showing me the drop down. So once I say export forecast results, I should probably have a message in there, but I didn't get any errors. Everything worked as expected. And so you can see that I have these new data tables now. So the first one is just forecast results. It just gives you all the parameters and the metadata that you've used, and it gives you the binary representation of all the other results. And then you get 3 more tables that actually unpack it. So now if you look at what is this X over here, this X is nothing but the period values. So if I forget about the date, Jan, Feb, March, if I look at every marker as starting at 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on, I can see that somewhere around 12, that is after 12 months, I start getting my fitted line. And then that line extends to 27 months. So this would be 24 months and then another 6 months. That looks about correct. And then you've got the forecasted line that starts at 27 time periods and goes up for the next 6 time periods or 8 time periods. And then we've got the confidence line that again goes in for the 6 time periods that we had programmed in there. This is basically how you would get data from the forecast right-click functionality. Are there any questions page that I should address? All right, so let me go on to the next one. The next question is about how to use image as a button. This question, huge shout out to Peter Shaw and Andrew, who created the page and then actually found the page and referred it to me. And even this question, it was sent to the Dr Spotfire email alias, but Andrew is one of the typical data scientists that's very active on community, so you see a lot of correspondence being addressed to him. This question basically asks how to create a URL button, but it should be an image instead of just a button. As you can see here, I've got an image and I can click on it and it will work as a URL. So it takes me to the Dr Spotfire office hours. How I've configured that is actually standard simple HTML. So if you go in and see, this is every time you enter an image into a text area, this image source tag is created. All I've done is I've surrounded it by A/A tags that are used to display the URL. I could have had some additional information here and then a /A tag. Now what's interesting is that I can control this image like just the way that I would control any other HTML element. If I say width, then it scales down and it becomes like smaller, more like a button. If I remove that, it stays full size. So HTML areas in Spotfire are, text areas in Spotfire are completely compliant with HTML, so you can use all of these nice little scripts in there. All right, moving on to the next one. This question is around creating a dynamic shapefile using IronPython. The video that the user has referenced shows a ship, and it shows the tail of the ship as like the points or the trajectories where the user moved. So they couldn't track down the DXP, and that's why we got this question. So I couldn't find exactly that DXP, but I have done work like that before. So I'm showing the link for TIBCO Analytics Community Meetup, and this is called Hurricane Path Analysis. Within this Hurricane Path Analysis, this is a video that should show up once my internet starts working properly. In that video, I've actually shown the trajectory or the path of hurricanes that are moving. And I've also shown like data cleaning steps for that. I've shown how exactly I've managed to standardize that. Actually, let's go in and open up that DXP. While that DXP is opening, there's this other very useful tutorial on the Spotfire blog, where you can see how to animate visualization. So there's a few different ways. This is with numerical, this is with date time. And then finally, there is useful geospatial data functions. So when you get a particular shapefile that needs to fit in with certain Spotfire expectations of what the column types need to be like. So there is a geometry attribute, there are other attributes that you need to set up. This page shows you several such functions that will help you get an external shapefile, and if you change it or reduce it, or like if you do any amount of data cleaning, or like how they showed if you want to have like a line with the IDs on it, if you do any of those programmatic changes, then the data functions on these pages help you get it to look right. So this is the one that you need, convert polygon coordinates to polygon geometries. There's a similar one for lines, there's a similar one for points. But if you're just downloading like an external shapefile, you should just be able to drag and drop it. So let me go in and show the video. And this video actually does nothing, but it just takes. So I've shown where I got the data from, how I've cleaned it, and this is what it looks like. So I've got a geometry column, I've got an index column, and I've got scripts in there that animate on this index column. So now if I basically just say start or stop, you'll see the path of the hurricanes come in. Over here, I'm using the polygon. I could just as easily have used, the line trajectory that was shown. And if I just let it running for a little bit, you see the other hurricanes start to come in. So this is data from last year. So you can see the timestamps, hurricane season last year, and this has been scraped from the NOAA website. All right. Any questions about this? Okay. So I'm going to move on to the next question, which is property control. This user wanted to have a button that would allow them to include or exclude specific property points, specific like points that are lesser than a value on a scatter plot. So the example DXP, and thank you for uploading the DXP, that makes our lives much easier when we're trying to create the solution. So this is the DXP, as you can see, and the toggle button should be able to remove these points, and then if you click on it again, it adds these points. So how I went about the solution is that something like this just screams IronPython. So if you want to change the behavior of Spotfire that you can't directly do using filters, then the easiest way to do that is using IronPython. So here's in reference to the IronPython community page, and if you don't have these links, just Google for them. So if I say IronPython scripting Spotfire or IronPython scripts Spotfire, this is literally the first result that comes up. Page, you can see we've got scripts related to data, visualization, filtering, marking, user interface, maps, the document, API type, integration, etc. So here, when we talk about removing these points, it sounds like it would be filtering and marking. So I just went to filtering and marking, just read through the script names, and I found one that I was looking for. So this is setting a specific filter, which is exactly what I want, because I want to change one particular column value. So right now, you see that this delta MV is a real value, but I know what the cutoff is, and the cutoff is very simple. It's just any value that's less than 100 MV or something like that. So if I say, let's look at the data panel, and I'll show you the source view. In the source view, I added this particular chain. So I created this particular flag, which basically says that if my column value is less than 100, then it's a shorted casing, otherwise it's okay, or it's the rest. I don't really care about the other category. After I created that particular flag, then I went to my script. So the script that I'm using is pretty much, let's go to edit, properties, script. The script that I'm using is pretty much exactly the same until the very end. So what this does is that it looks for the filter which is matched with your column name. And over here, it's using a list box filter. You can change it accordingly for any other radio filter or any other filter. And then once you grab that list box filter, you are basically reassigning it. And when you reassign it, you give it all of the values that that column is expected to have. Now over here, I only want to toggle it based on, remove the shorted one. So I only want to keep the rest. So what I've done is that I've said that, okay, assign it to rest, but there is this overriding attribute, which basically says that for this filter, which is, this one that I've named it over here, for this filter, include all values. That means ignore my assignment and show all the values. So if initially all my values are shown, then I'm going to say false, which will give it this assignment. But if initially all values are not shown, then I'm going to say true, which is going to ignore my assignment and show all the values. And then I just say that, set selection to the values that I provide, because it's just an array type. I need to actually assign it to something. So then I just pass on those selections to my filter. So when I say okay, and I have set it up as a button over here. So this button is set up exactly how I showed in the previous question to the document property. Now when I click on it, it removes the values. And when I click on it again, it shows the values. So that's how I've been able to create the toggle functionality. Do check out that page. It has a lot of very useful IronPython information. Next question that we have is around best practices for big data querying in Spotfire. I am not going to go through the question because that's something we have to deal with in a little bit more detail with Dr. Spotfire. We tend to look at smaller beginner to intermediate problems. For things requiring more time and assistance, we request you to go through support. But I wanted to show you this page, which is the TIBCO Spotfire Data Access FAQ. This page has a lot of excellent information around, what your query speed should be, what query speeds to expect, what the limitations are, and it also has some general questions like when to use on demand and when to use, load all the data. Then some speed, time, and optimizations around joins, because they tend to be a problem sometimes. Around the size of the data, how to improve the performance of your live queries, etc. There's a lot of good information on the page that I encourage you to check out. So I'm going to move on to the next question, which is how to create your own wiki. So I got this from a user that had set up a page to show cache refresh automation. That is, after your ETL is complete, getting like an email notification saying that your pipeline is now ready. And they provided like a document, they provided contact information. So I am right now logged in, and if you're a community user, when you log in, you see similar controls where you're able to create a new page. So if you have content that you want to share with the community, you want to share with Dr. Spotfire sessions, create your new page, create your titles, contact information, whatever your article is, and then add these tags, So for example, this is tips and tricks, this is Spotfire admin. And once you add these tags, it will start to link or recommend your page alongside pages that are similar to that. So this was a user contribution that I wanted to highlight for the week. Finally, we got a question live. I'm sorry, I will not be able to address this because I don't have the data set up, but I have the link to the community question and I'll answer it on community. So for the final question that we have today, it has to do with setting up Spotfire environments, and mostly, once you get a license, you just want to get started. How do you go about doing that? So for this question, I'm going to hand over to my colleague Ninaz, and he'll be taking it over.
Yeah, thanks, DJ. Hey guys, so we receive such questions from many new customers, and we started thinking how we will address them. So we went ahead and created this page, which is intended to be a self-service page for customer who bought Spotfire and they want to go from buying a software to the first step taking with that. So this page is for those people who want to know and start using Spotfire. So if you see, this page is like we gave step by step. Like first step will be the gaining access. So if you see, it will tell you how you will download the software from our site, what system requirement you have to take care of before buying hardware or allocating hardware to your new Spotfire instances. It's about documentation. If you want to go through documentation, learn about architecture and how you want to set up your Spotfire. So I will not go through everything, but so then the second step would be how you have to think about how I will get set up and start using my software. So we distributed in different modules. For example, if you are administration, so IT, how they will go about just watching some videos to install the software and start patching or upgrading by watching just quick videos rather than go through use documentation. If you want to just get your test or UAT set up and allow your business user to start playing with it. So similarly, there is for data prep, how you will bring your data inside Spotfire and how you will start using it. And then the third part is about the story creation by analyzing. And then if you are really good with it, how you will keep using and different advanced techniques in Spotfire. So this page is intended for all the new users to allow them to take first steps with Spotfire. And we are just doing the pilot with some of the customer. So we received that question, which is like perfect for why, about why we created that page and wanted to explain Dr. Spotfire users about this page so they can use it, or they can even forward to people who are new in the team and they are just getting used to Spotfire. I will paste that link in the chat shortly, or might be if DJ. Okay, I will paste it. So I paste the link to that page on chat of this webinar. But let me just answer the question we got. That user wanted to understand the development and production environment during Spotfire server installation. So if you want to have like UAT test and prod, those all will be independent installation. And many times people do like the mirror of the database of UAT environment to the prod when the project is okay to go into the production. And yeah, everything else is very straightforward. Here about about the access rights and LDAP. Basically, I would suggest to go through that page so you will able to learn about Spotfire slowly and systematically. So you will be self-sustainable to learn more about Spotfire going forward. Thanks, DJ. That's it from me.
Great. Thank you, everyone. That was today's session for Dr. Spotfire. We'll see you next week, and keep posting your questions on community, and look forward to a lot of content from you. Bye-bye.